Hello, you're watching Ellie from Elementary Paper Crafting. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK. This is the Stampin' Up annual catalogue, which is available now up until April of next year. And in this catalogue is a beautiful suite of products, and it's called Hand Penned. Now, it's one of our suites, so it includes not just a stamp set, but there are also dies that cut out the elements that you can stamp. And there's also some beautiful DSP, designer series paper, and there are some little gems that actually go with the suite as well. So several items here, and used together you can create some really wonderful projects. Now, today I'm casing the catalogue. Now, if you don't know what case means, it stands for copy and share everything. So CASE. So when you get one of these beautiful catalogues, there's always lots and lots of examples in the catalogue to show you how the designers have used the products. And sometimes when you get a new product, you know you like it, you're attracted by the colours, the designs. Sometimes you look at it and think, oh, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use it. So it's really quite acceptable to copy these designs. It's fine for you to do that. That's what they're there for. And like most people, you will probably find that you start off thinking, oh, I'll copy that. But then you might look and think, oh, I haven't got that colour, so I'll just use a different colour. And then you think, well, I might not have that cardstock, so I use a different cardstock. So actually, it just really gets you going, gives you the inspiration to start something of your own. And 9 times out of 10, the card you produce actually is not a copy. So go ahead and see what you can do with all the designs in our catalogue. And just, you know, to give you an idea, you can take a different suite and use this just for an example. This one here. So there's an image of the stamps being used on a piece of card and the card front. Now you could do that with any image. Take any of our stamps and you can do the same effect. So you can use any design from any suite, but use a different set of products with the same design, and then you're making your own card. So the one I was going to case today is this one, and I am actually really not making that card at all, although that's how it started off. But I ended up just using it as an idea. Okay, so let's move this out of the way and I'll show you what I'm actually doing here. So there's the stamp set, as I say, and I always keep the dies inside my case so that I know where they are. So most of these dies cut out the stamped images. That there are 1 or 2 that work independently, but very, very versatile. And this lovely one here is an edge die, and that cuts out a lovely fluted edge on your card or paper, or you can use it any way you like. And it also leaves behind this lovely stitched effect as well. So that's a really handy little bonus die there. So let's just pop that away. And I've done a little bit in advance, just so that my video doesn't go on and on forever. So what I've done is I've taken the largest stamp in the set and put it onto an e-block. That's that one there. And I've stamped it using Versamark ink, and that's the sticky invisible ink. So on top of that, I've used black embossing powder, and then I've heat set it. And that gives me a lovely kind of raised, shiny border to all my flowers and leaves. Now the reason I've done that is because I'm going to use my stamp pads as watercolours today, and just in case, I was worried sometimes if you're using watercolour it can bleed. Well, if you've stamped using this, it won't bleed anywhere. It will contain in here. It's probably not going to bleed because I don't add too much water. So I'm starting off with, sorry, I should have shown the top of this. My stamp pad is soft sea foam, and this is one of my favourite colours. It's a very, very light green, and I'm using a fine paintbrush just because that's what I find easier. I'm not a practiced, seasoned watercolour, so I tend to use a very fine brush so that I've got more control over it. And now I usually take a piece of kitchen towel and I just keep it to the side here, so that if I feel I've got too much water on my brush, I can just take a bit off on there. Now I have 2 pots of water because I like to clean off the colour in the small one, and then I'll clean the brush again so that I've got 1 jar of water that's almost clean. Otherwise you can end up with your colours getting a bit murky. So I'm starting off, and I don't want this to have a lot of colour, so I'm diluting it quite a bit with the water to bring the colour down. Oh, and incidentally, the way I got the ink in there was to turn my stamp pad upside down and press down hard in the middle, and then the ink transfers into the lid like so. So I'm just taking up a little bit of that colour. Now you don't need this to be very wet, because if you're using the Stampin' Up cardstock, which is I'm using very vanilla, but you can use white if you prefer. It's not watercolour paper, so it's not going to absorb the paint like watercolour card does. So it can pill if you get this too wet. So I'm just using minimum amount of water and just painting these leaves with the soft sea foam. As you can see, this really doesn't take very much time at all. The other reason I used the Versamark and the embossing powder was for another reason. Sometimes you will stamp an image using ordinary stamp and an ordinary stamp pad, die stamp pad, and when you add water to your colours, it can sometimes smudge the ink that you've stamped. So this was a sure way of making sure that I kept this clean. Now I'm using a bit of Granny Apple Green, and I'm just coming into the centre of these leaves, and I'm not adding a lot of colour, and I'm just coming in just either side of the centre line, the veining, just to bring in a little bit more colour, and so it gives a kind of natural darker shade in the centre of the leaf. And you'll often find this if you look at the leaves in your garden, etc. You'll probably find that most of them do have different shades of green on them, and I tend to just do this little effect where I bring the brush in from the top, and that kind of really, not only does it give you an extra colour, it sort of just accentuates the veining. Okay, and as you can see, I did go ahead and I started this one so that, again, just to keep the video shorter, but I'm just going to do exactly the same as I've already done. My next colour is Balmy Blue. This is a really nice blue. It's I'm going to say nearly a greeny blue. but not quite. It's just lovely. It's a lovely sky colour. It's a lovely water, colourful water. And my theme actually is blue for this card, so I just wanted to use this light blue. Now, I'm using this lighter blue on the larger flowers, and no great skill here. I'm just washing it over the petal and just bringing it into the centre. Now, all Stampin' Up colours, in fact all stamp pad colours, do dry to a lighter shade. So if you're looking at that one and thinking, that's not the same colour, it was just dried. I did that yesterday and it's dried out to a fainter colour. So I'm just going around, and as you can see, I'm not taking any great care with this. It's watercolouring, and that's what watercolouring is about. So I'm just going in, and if you notice, this bit here isn't diluted very much at all, so the colour is much darker. And I'm doing the same kind of thing as I did with the leaf. I'm coming in to the centre of the flower and just giving it a bit more depth in the centre, and you'll find that a lot of flowers are darker towards the centre. And different parts of the petals do have different colours as well. I never really looked closely at flowers until I started Sugarcraft and I started to make sugar flowers, and that's when you actually go and really look at flowers. In fact, I've actually taken flowers apart to see how they grow, to help me make them properly, and that's when you really begin to look at flowers, and there's stuff you never ever would have noticed before. They're amazing. Just take a little bit of the water off. So I'm using Night of Navy here to do the smaller flowers. And Night of Navy, when it dries, does dry in a sort of very dark violet colour. So what I did was, when that one dried, I just went over it again, and that brought back the navy. Now, when I stamped this at first, I thought I hadn't stamped hard enough. I thought I hadn't put enough ink on my stamp. But then when I actually looked at stamp again, I realised that that's the way it's made, very kind of abstract. So some parts of it are deliberately unstamped, if you like. So I'm just going to go over that area that dried to take off the violet hue to make it more of the blue again. Remember, don't put too much water on your brush, because you don't want your card to pill. Okay, you need the water to mix it, that's fine, but then just take your brush and touch it. Actually, I've got my brush, a couple of the hairs have splayed out. That's better. So I'm just going over this blue again to darken it up. So how's everyone enjoying the hot weather? I have to say that I'm not a lover of extreme heat. I do love to see the blue skies and the sunshine. It does make you feel better. But I'm definitely not a sunbather, and I can't sit out in it for long. But, you know, it's so good after all the rain we've had to actually get some nice weather. So having done the colouring, I'm now going to use my die to cut this out, and it's very, very easy to place. You can very easily see the clear lines where you've got to cut. So you just place your die over it. Now I use a little bit of, this is post-it tape, and it comes in a roll, if I can find it. Oh, that was easy, it's here. So it's just in a roll like this. You can buy this from most craft shops and I think maybe some stationers. And it is like a post-it note, but it's just it's all covered, sticky, and it's on a roll. And I use this over and over again, the same piece. So I'm just going to cut that out. My die cutting machine's not in camera, so I'll just be back in a minute. So we're all cut out now, and if I just lift that up, you'll see that that's cut out beautifully. I'm just sticking that on my machine so it's there ready for next time, and I like to pop this back as soon as I've used it. Otherwise, I'm sure some of you have done the same as me. You just pop it down somewhere and then you can't find it. So I know that's all back in there. So that's that. Now, by the magic of TV, there are 2 of those. So yes, I did prepare another one ahead of time, just so that, as I say, not so that I could keep this video a bit shorter. So the next thing I'm going to show you is something else I've prepared ahead of time. So if I just bring this back in a little bit quickly, this piece of card in the background, again, I've chosen very vanilla, and I decided to use an embossing folder on that piece of card just to give it a bit of added interest. And also the difference to my card is I'm using an A5 card rather than A6, so mine's bigger. So when I wanted to use my embossing folder, which is this one, unfortunately this one has been retired, but you can use any embossing folder that you have. We have lots and lots in our catalogue, and I'm sure you've got some. I've got loads, but unfortunately all of mine are now retired. But just in a way it's good I have this one to show you, because if I was making a A6 card, then I would put my card in there and that would fit onto an A6 card. But because mine's A5, my card is this kind of size, twice that. So what I did was I put a piece of card in and I embossed it, piece of A5 card in, and then I embossed it, I turned it round and I embossed it again, okay, and then I cut it to the size I wanted. Now that has given me the mark where my embossing folder ended, but that's fine, because can you see in this one it's got a piece of ribbon there. So I'm going to hide that with my, well, I'm not going to use a piece of ribbon, I'll show you what I'm using in a minute. So that's how you can get over using an embossing folder that's too small, okay. You just use it twice and cover the join. Now I've chosen navy blue as my card base, and then this represents that piece of card, okay. So let's just pop that catalogue out of the way again. So my card's going to look something like this. I'm offsetting my piece of very vanilla, and I'm going to kind of pop these, I'm not quite sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but they're going to go opposite each other like that. Then I'm having something to cover that, and as a piece of added interest, they've used a strip of designer series paper from the suite underneath there. I didn't buy the designer series paper, so what I did was what I often do. I used the stamps in the set to make my own. I chose just to stick with a monochromatic look here. I think there's enough colour here. I didn't want to detract from it. So I've just used the Night of Navy and the small stamps in the set just to randomly stamp that design. And I've also popped in one of the greeting stamps as well, the sentiments. I think sometimes to put some text into the DSP is rather nice. Now on the end here you'll see I've got some tear and tape. Now the reason for that is I want to bring some gold into this, and that's what I'm using to cover this. So I've got a piece of very vanilla cardstock with a piece of tear and tape down the side, and I've done the same with this. Now I've done that ahead of time, just as I say, to save time, but if you look, this is quite it's a bit wider than the tear and tape, so I'm going to put another piece on here to show you that you can make this thicker. Okay, all will be revealed very shortly. So let's take my tape, and I'm just going to get my silicone mat so that I don't get tape on my base paper. So I'm just going to pop that on. I'm going to butt it right up next to the piece I've already put down. And then I get my bone folder and really press this down hard, because when I peel the backing off, I want to make sure only the backing comes off. Now I'm bringing in my gilded leaf, and that comes in this jar. Beautiful effect, but very messy. So you keep it in a box sealed, that's why your elastic band's there, to make sure it doesn't open on its own. And then the idea is you remove the tape from your card, like so. Open the box very carefully. Oh, I've got it upside down. Right, open it carefully. If you open it quickly, the flakes can puff up and escape. So that was good. Nothing came out. So I've got an old pastry brush in there. I hasten to add, I do not use this for cooking anymore. And then pop it in and get the flakes up on top of the card. Now the idea with these flakes is that you use them over and over again, and it's a good idea not to have too many in here to start with. I found that the fewer you have in here, the less likely they are to escape. But it's very, very light, and they do fly about. Whoops, there you go, look. So just gently pat it down onto the tape, and don't worry about getting too much down. That's absolutely fine. We'll sort that out in a minute, but just concentrate on pressing it down at this stage to get good coverage. And then once you've gone over and pressed it all down, as you're working along, you can feel if you've missed any, because you'll feel the stickiness of the tape. And then once you've worked it in a little bit, I'm not pressing hard, I'm just very gently rubbing over this. Not much pressure at all. As you go along and as it starts to come off, you can put more pressure on it. It's a really lovely effect. It's not like gold embossing. You don't get a clean, shiny, highly polished look like you do with embossing powder and heat setting it. This is a kind of vintage look. It's very unique. I think it's beautiful. So I've made myself a decorative strip, okay? And I'm going to do exactly the same with my piece of designer series paper. I'm trying to get this spaced out equally at the bottom to pop onto here. So I only want a very thin piece on that, so I've only added one piece of tape to this. And again, I've placed it underneath there so that I've hopefully got enough of this leaf to cover this one width of tape. Okay, now when I first played with this, I was a bit excited is probably the word. And when I first put the gold leaf on, I started rubbing it straight away, and it didn't work very well. So just in case you've done that or you've not tried it yet and you might make that mistake in future, stick with it, try it again and do what I've done, and rather than rubbing it right at the beginning, just place it on there and press it down and rub afterwards. Now, yeah, that's another occupational hazard with this. Breathing, laughing, and definitely sneezing is going to really mess this up. So actually, those face masks that we hate wearing, they do come in very useful for this. And had I not been filming this and speaking to you, I might have worn one to ensure that I don't blow these all over the place. So as you can see, I am gradually beginning to rub this in, and while I'm rubbing it in, I'm taking the excess off. But now that I know I've stuck it all down, I can begin to give it quite a lot more pressure. I will warn you that when you've done this, you will end up with gold flakes all over your hands, all over your face, all over your worktop. Oops. So as you can see, I'm using the lid to give myself something to press down on here to get the excess off. It's such a pretty effect. But I found this old pastry brush is perfect because it's gentle enough not to damage anything, but it's got a little bit of stiffness in it to get rid of the excess. Okay, so that's on the paper, and I think you'll agree. I hope you can see the effect. It's really nice. It's like distressed gold, really. Now I'm going to try to get the rest of this into my box. I'm trying to hold my head away so that I don't breathe on it and get it all out of the box again. And then close the box gently. Whew. Look. Don't know how that happened. Sound like a child, don't I? I don't know how that happened, Mum. It wasn't me. Right, and then on with the elastic band to make sure that lid doesn't pop over. Well, that's quite exciting, I think. Oh dear, it's always nice to have a bit of mess when you're crafting, then you know you've done something. So that's my gold strip that I'm going to use to cover the join there. Okay, so that's going to go across there. So I'm just going to bring in my trimmer, and I'm just going to, this measurement doesn't matter as long as I just get the gold strip. So that's it. So there's a little bit of gold there, but that's fine. And then I'm going to stick it across there. So I find the best thing to do is to glue it on and then turn it over and cut this to measure, and then I don't have any problem about it being the wrong measurement. With this one, I'm not sure on the measurement for this one, so I'm just going to bring my card in again and pop that onto there. This is a work in progress, so sometimes my decisions are not made until I actually come to put the card together, so I don't cut things out ahead of time. Now I just want this to peep out a little bit at the top and bottom. So I think if I cut it, I'm going to miss that there, lose this, anything is possible down there, but I think that'll be fine. So if I cut it above, anything is possible. Gold flake everywhere, as you can see. Oh dear, nothing like making a mess, is there? So if I just try that there and that there, and this is how you make a design. You don't decide at the beginning, oh, it's going to look exactly like this. You play with it. You audition things and you see what works. And that's fine for me. So I'm just going to very carefully move this and just look at that. Yeah, and I'm just going to move it around a little bit so it's roughly ½ inch all the way around. Okay, and then I'm using my Tombow multi-purpose glue in the fine tip applicator bottle again, and I'm just going to grab my tweezers. I like to pick things up with my tweezers, I find it easier to manage, and then just try and get that almost equal around. Doesn't matter if it's not spot on. Nobody's going to be there with a ruler and checking it. And then I'm just going to put the double-sided tape onto the card. Again, let's bring in my silicone mat. And I'm going to go right across the middle there. And if you use an old credit card, gift card or something, you can just pop that on the edge or rip your tape, and then you'll know that your tape is dead straight. Well, I should have done that before I broke it off. And then if you use your bone folder to go over that, you'll make sure that the backing tape sticks right down. So I'm just going to take the edge off of that and the backing off of that. Take my gold leaf piece and fit that over. Take my scissors and cut it from the back. And I can always keep that little bit, it'll come in useful for something else. And then this piece, I'm going to use the tape for this, because sometimes when you've got an embossed uneven backing, using a wet glue, sometimes it doesn't get into all the bits and stick it properly. And again, I'm just making sure that that's thoroughly stuck down with my bone folder, and then I can use the tape to stick it down. Now, I've done this many times before, shown you this little tip. I find if I remove the corners of the tape, just 4 corners, so I usually rotate it and always remove the top left hand corner, and then I just peel it back a tiny little bit so that when I place it down on my work, I only put pressure down on the sides where the backing tape's still there, which means I can hold this up, I can see where I'm holding it, and I can just pop it down. Oh, peel off the tape. Like so. So, having got that far, I think we've done really well here now. And then it's just a case of deciding where I'm going to finally add my flowers. Now I'm just coming in with my bone folder here and shaping this a little bit, because I don't want it to be dead flat, and just sort of doming it slightly in the middle. Don't want a huge domed effect, but I don't want it dead flat, so I'm just coming in with my bone folder and gently curving it, using my thumb over the top there and giving it a nice little effect like that. And bring it in a little bit. I quite like things coming over the corners there, but I'm going to leave this one on the card because I've got the flowers here. But at the top there, I think that looks quite nice hanging off. And then I'm going to use some dimensionals to give this a bit of height. So I'm just going to put them towards the centre, not on the edges, because if I put them on the edges I won't get the domed effect. And you don't need lots and lots of dimensionals. 4 is plenty on this. So just take that off and have a couple of the leaves coming over the top there. And I'll just show you something. You don't throw this away when you've used all the little bits out of the middle. Use the edges as well. So just to show you, I've been making something that needed tiny little bits, and I've just used my scissors to cut those bits away and use those. Well, you can just use every bit of this. So I can just cut out a bit here and just move that there. I've stuck it to my finger now, so just pop that in the middle. It doesn't have to be the actual 6-sided shape that of the ones in the middle. Any shape's going to work. Any shape's going to stick to your project and give you the raised effect that you're looking for. Okay, so don't waste anything. And that's all you need. It's only the middle I want to raise up so that you get this nice domed effect. Now you can go in and rip these off like that, but sometimes I find that doesn't work for me, so I do end up peeling them. Okay, so just pop that at an angle, and then to finish this off I'm going to stamp that little greeting, anything is possible. I think with what we've been through this last year, you'll all agree, anything is possible. And you know, if you get any positivity from this, it's that it's possible to get through something like this with the help of your friends, your family, your neighbours, a good community spirit. We come through this, and sadly a lot of us have had some heartache through it, but I think there's been a lot of positivity too. We've trusted people a bit more, we've helped people, and we've survived. And so anything is possible. So I've done that again in light of navy. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit in my trimmer. Right, I think if I put it there, it's going to need a little piece of night navy to underneath it to help it to pop up from the white background, or the now I've got lots of scraps of card. Never throw your card away, just keep it in your little folder with your main stock, and then you've always got a little bit to use as a mat, because you don't want to cut into a full-sized piece of A4 card just to make a little mat for something. And again, I'm just going to do this by eye. And that's going to help to make that pop there. And again, I think I'll use the dimensionals to bring this up away from the card. So we started off by casing the catalogue, and that was my inspiration. But as I said right at the beginning, sometimes although you're actually copying something, your finished card is nothing like the original. I've just really used the template, if you like, the sketch, the idea of where I've placed things. But I've changed it up quite a lot. I've used completely different colours. I've used different materials. I didn't use ribbon. I've used the gold flake. I've made my own DSP, added the gold flake to that, and made a completely different card. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And if you have, would you please give me a thumbs up, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.